Welcome, everyone. Great to see you here for this session on CERN groups and how the different CERN groups in different parts of the world operate, and as well as the, issues and challenges, but also opportunities that come from the CERN groups. So would be great if we just started with a go round and if everyone could say where they are, when they are, what time is it for you, and what day is it for you, and just what your connection to CERN groups or a CERN group is. And I might just do it by going around on my screen. So Matt, you're first on my screen.
Hi everyone, I'm Matt. I'm actually in the border between England and Wales, in the Black Mountains near to Hereford. I work at the University of Bristol, and it's Thursday at 6 p.m. here.
Great. And your CERN connection?
Oh, my CERN connection. I did the summer school well, I'm not quite sure, last year or the year before. And I also work with Martin Parker at the University of Bristol. So yeah, there's a few of us who are in CERN here, and I've been doing research about community technology and using some ideas from diverse economies with that. So yeah, always very inspired. And coordinating the Europe group with Wendy, who's there, well, on my screen anyway.
Yes, I was waiting for that last
There you
bit.
go. That's why
Coordinate
I'm here.
CERN. Yeah. So then, Wendy, you're next on my screen.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm also coordinating with Matt CERN Europe. I'm in The Hague, and it's 6 minutes past 7 p.m. And yeah, nice to be here.
Great. Julia.
Well, my name is Julia. I am in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I am part of the coordination of CERN Latin America with Pablo Herrera. And I've been participating in CERN a few years ago, but now in this role that is like coordinate the group. So happy to be here. And here are the 3 p.m. also afternoon. Thank you.
Lovely. And Pablo.
Well, I am going to repeat some of Julia says, but in Spanish, if you prefer. Estamos acá en Buenos Aires, son las 3 del día jueves y estamos coordinando junto con Julia la regional latinoamericana, así que muy contentos de estar acá compartiendo. Paso la palabra.
Great. Thank you. Christian.
Christian, I'm on Coast Salish land in Seattle in the US. It is 10 a.m. on Thursday the 6th, and my connection is that I have been part of CERN North America groups for a few years, and I am part of a CEI subcommittee called Communities of Practice that thinks about what some of the groups are doing, among other things.
Great. Aviv.
Hi, I'm Aviv. I'm in Boulevard Hessel Road area of Hull, in the north of England. It's 6 p.m. and very dark. I'm on the email lists of several CERN groups, and always with the intention of participating more in the Latin American one, in the European one. Mostly a no-show, unfortunately, but always with the intention. And I'm part of the small group that's coordinating the what we call ABC /DE, arts-based community / diverse economies group.
Great, thanks, Aviv. And Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna Krasinski. I'm in Montreal in Quebec, North America. I am also on the CERN group, CERN email list. I'm not involved in any of the structural or organizational stuff for now. I'm here sort of to see what's going on. I do research on community economies, diverse economies here on Turtle Island. I publish in French a lot. And yeah, I am interested in eventually getting more involved in either this, probably the institute where I'm sort of on pause. But yeah, so I'm here to see what's going on.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Emily.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Melvin. I am in North Carolina in the United States, which is on the East Coast. So it is currently about 1 p.m. And I have taken on some coordination for the CERN North America group, although I have not been doing as great a job as I would have liked over the last couple months, which I'll talk about a little bit, but involved in that group as well.
Great. Thanks, Emily. And Bianca.
Hello, good evening. I'm Bianca. I'm located in Cologne, Germany at 7 p.m. and I joined CERN a few months ago. I'm a research assistant at the Department of Economics and my mentor is Katrin Böhm. Maybe some of you know her. And I always wanted to join the group call of the CERN Europe call, but I always gave classes on Wednesday. So I would, love to join actually the monthly calls and also would like to get involved a bit more, like Annika said. So I'm here to also, see what's happening.
That's lovely. Fantastic, Bianca. And as most of you know, I'm Jenny Cameron. I'm in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and it is just after 7 a.m. on Friday. So one of the places where the sun rises early, and my dog's just gone ape shit because the neighbours are driving their car out. I'll start throwing some food in a moment. That'll stop up. So yeah, I just during this Liviana, I thought it was a great opportunity for some of the CERN groups to get together and just to hear a little bit about what each other's, doing and some of the issues and so on that we face. So let's get started with hearing what everybody's up to. And Matt and Wendy, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay.
And Matt, if you want to share screen.
Yeah.
And how about I time for 5 minutes and I'll let you know when 5 minutes is up.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. If I do
Great.
this, is that going to ruin it if I do this? Can you all see the
No.
slides there?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. Great. Well, I'm just going to do it. We've only got slides so we know what we're saying. So we're not trying to be clever. And we've just got 3 slides. I'm going to do 2, then Wendy's going to do 1. So we just to say that CERN Europe kind of restarted in February 2025 after, I'm not quite sure, Jenny, I'm sure you can tell us how long CERN Europe was inactive for, but a little bit of time.
Yeah, it was probably only sort of 12 months or so. It wasn't that long, but it sort of hadn't got into a rhythm.
Yeah.
So it had been a bit sporadic.
Yeah, so we've done kind of monthly, really like a reading group. As we started it, I started it with Anne Charlotte, and we did that for a while. Then Wendy, Anne Charlotte couldn't do it anymore, so then Wendy came along, and Wendy's been involved more recently. So at the beginning, we did a kind of a reading group thing. You can see we had, well, the list is there. I'm not going to read it through, but we had Kath with us, which was great because she was in Germany and talked about Letter to Julie. So we have run this really like a reading group at the beginning. So those things, and then we've got a paper by Martin Parker, which is next week, and then Peter North in December. We've generally had discussions and questions, all that kind of stuff. But latterly, as Wendy joined me to coordinate this stuff, there's been more in the way of discussions around funding, and I get the feeling that we might kind of be a bit more mixed in the way that we do things going forward. So it's not just like a reading group, but what has happened is that I don't know whether this is the reading group way of doing things or not, but we have got quite good attendance at the moment. and there's 10 to 15 people who kind of come along. And another thing that we've done is we've kind of made our intros more focused on the topic rather than the weather, because it seemed to be that our intros were focused on the weather. So we were kind of in our intros and our catch-ups trying to get more focused on the piece of work. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. That's what we've done, and that's that bit. And I'm just going to pass over to Wendy.
Okay, thanks, Matt. As Matt said, it's been running monthly, and we're aiming to build more interest and more people coming along. And in probably the best attended had been when we talked about funding and how we linked also to the Community Economies Institute, which is also being set up, and thinking about how we could build community. So the idea of building community is not only about people giving papers or, as Matt was saying, a sort of reading group approach, but more actually talking about how do we cope with what's going on now as community economies scholars, as activists, as practitioners. And in that sense, do we need some money to get together, maybe in person, which would be great. And the CEI Europe setup means that the sort of technical possibilities are there. And so a small group of us Bianca, Sarah, and I are thinking through together, maybe going for a cost action or something like that, so that we could actually meet. This is something that will sort of, if you like, continue monthly meetings, continue talking about people's work, whether it's papers or ideas they want to do or practices they're doing, and then add in each meeting a sort of, well, what else can we do together? How are we feeling about what's going on, not only within CERN, but, a lot of things that are happening that are impacting our lives as scholars, as people concerned about, the world, just put it that way. So in that sense, we're hoping to attract more people and to eventually get the possibility of meeting not just online. And I think that's really all we wanted to share, Jenny, because it's sort of it's been great what's happened last year, but we're hoping to build a bit more on to that. And we're looking for people to not only give papers, but also to join us in the sense of what it is to build a community.
Just
Right.
to add really quick, we do have a writing group as well, a weekly writing group. I mean, not, it's only a couple of people come, but it is available for anyone to join. So yeah, that as well.
Yeah.
I'll stop sharing.
That's great. And actually 10 to 15 people coming is amazing. That's really fantastic.
We hold the meetings, the writing sessions are held every Friday, right, Matt? Online. So that's something we're also, Matt's running those, and different people come, right? It's people who turn up. So it's just there, right?
Yeah, and there's someone who wasn't part of CERN who had done the summer school and has been now subsequently joined. So it's been quite a nice place to kind of, connect and offer that connection. And the other thing about the group is that it's very, it's very broad. There's kind of, people really with a big career behind them, and there's other people who are just in their PhD. So it is really varied, and there's people who are not working in institutions and others who are. So yeah, that's us.
Yeah. Right, fantastic. And we'll have, if you've got burning questions, just note them down, and then once everyone's presented, then we can ask some of those burning questions of each other. But Matt, maybe you could put the link for the writing group in the chat for Aviv, who is going to be there tomorrow. Great. So Pablo and Julia. And again, I'll time for 5 minutes and let you know when the 5 minutes is up.
Okay,
Right.
thank you,
Hi.
Jenny. I'm going to read something that we prepare, and Pablo is going to share a slide. Well, so CERN Latin America was formed in 2018 based on contact and exchange between various academics, researchers, and social actors from Argentina, Colombia, Chile, Uruguay, and Mexico, among others. And we worked with Pablo Herrera on the coordination of 2024 and 2025. And we did this in communication with Antonia Casellas, Ana Inés Heras, Juliana Flores, and Marcelo Vieta, who we consider like our mentors in the community economics field. And it is important to explain that coordination in the regional is rotational, and that many participants from the regional have taken on this role. And the main objective of this period, 2024-2025, was to establish visible links between community economies and economic diversity in English literature with the experiences, practices, and concepts of Latin American countries. So to this end, we carry out two different activities. The first one was to create a living blog to share information and various writings that we elaborate in the Latin American regional. Ana Inés Heras was in charge of reviewing the writings and coordinate the editing, and the blog has various posts, including a glossary with definitions of specific Latin American categories in different language like mitimota, participación, arraigo, trabajo, recuperación de la salud y potencia vital. And you can access the living blog here. There is in the chat. And the second activity that we carried out was to design and implement a pilot school of community economies for the Latin American region. And during the month of September of this year, we carried out the pilot school. And this experience took place in the Southern Hemisphere spring, so we can think of this school as a spring space. The journey to carry out this pilot school began several years ago, as we had been discussing the possibility in the CERN LA space since 2023. And during 2024, Pablo and I received scholarships from the SEI to attend the Node of North America of the Summer-Winter School. And this was very important for Pablo and I because it allowed us to gain detailed first-hand knowledge of the SEI's proposal and framework. And in 2025, we guided the CERN LA participants to co-develop the pilot school proposal during our monthly meetings. We meet monthly, and in this year, we have think the way to carry out the pilot school. So the coordination and facilitation of the pilot school was our responsibility with the support of Ana Heras and Antonia Casellas, who also participate in the school as speakers. And the spring school took place over 4 virtual meetings. Each meeting lasts 2 hours and 12 people were involved. And today, this is the last point that I'm going to say. Earlier today, as part of Liviana, we held the session 4.2 entitled CERN LA Plus School Space, a collaborative practice involving translation, design, and implementation. And during the session, we presented a slide similar to this one and carried out an activity in which we compared English language publications on community economies with publications in language more familiar to the participants of CERN LA. And
just got Julia frozen for a moment.
Yes, I think
doing
that.
In CERN Latinoamérica. Pablo.
Que te habías quedado congelado, Juli, la última
Okay.
parte. Pero I think that we can understand all the presentation, but I don't know if there are any question or it's okay.
That today earlier that we have been doing like a Liviana session that was very like the end of the start of a new process, but the end of one that took this year. So that was nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's all. Thank you.
So yeah, no, and it's great to have to hear what CERN Latin America is doing, because in a way you're such a mature group. You've been going since 2018, and now you're sort of, running activities like the blog, like the spring school, you're running Liviana sessions. I know last year or the year before there was some collaborative writing that you've done. So it's great to see how the consistency of having a group running over a number of years can really develop into something that works quite independently and has a really clear agenda of things that you're interested in doing. So maybe after we hear from everyone, we can come back to some questions from everyone, and maybe what's gone into establishing that maturity of the group. So that's from the mature end of the spectrum, and so now to the baby end of the spectrum, when we're taking baby steps. So Emily, CERN North America.
Sure, thank you. Yes, so what I've been kind of the generation of my involvement with CERN North America really came through a conversation a number of us had at the American Association of Geographers meeting in March. So a number of us got together in an informal conversation and started to talk a little bit about what we wanted to see for CERN North America going forward. And so I'm a PhD candidate at Duke, and together with another PhD candidate, Cassidy, we kind of volunteered to get the ball rolling on trying to kind of increase momentum for the group. There had been some folks, including Christian, who had really done a lot of the labor in organizing things previously. And I think it's challenging when the same people are constantly having to take responsibility. And I think Christian had a lot of responsibility in the group. So we kind of offered to take it on as like a fresh approach. And so we met as a group in July, and we had a really great turnout to follow up on those discussions and kind of talk about what we wanted out of the group and some of the things that we identified. One of the things that we all kind of discussed was that having it be a typical reading group was a little challenging. People often weren't having the time or the capacity to read things, especially things perhaps that are not directly in the context of what they're studying. So we talked about different discussions we might like to have, including things like workshops where people could workshop ideas that they had, or develop methods, develop ideas, some peer writing support, opportunities to put some CERN scholarship in conversation with other literature. And I know some folks, Christian had been involved in a discussion group earlier surrounding racial capitalism and some of those issues. Things like peer mentorship, and then some more practical resources as well, potentially on things like methods, funding for community economies work, educational resources for teaching community economies, policy and legislative resources, and things of that nature. So we identified a really broad set of things that we were interested in. And then unfortunately and fortunately, Cassidy and I have both had just some surprising things come up over the last few months, good and bad. So it's just been really difficult for us to, I think, get into a routine. So I think once we're able to set those meetings and get into a routine, which I hope to do next month and schedule something, then I think once we get into a routine, hopefully we'll be able to get the ball rolling and kind of understand what this is going to look like. The other thing that we talked about, and I will share my screen very briefly. It's not a slide, but we talked about one of the challenges being scheduling. So we're kind of experimenting with the possibility of asynchronous opportunities for engagement. So I'll share this just really quickly. So I set up this Discord channel, which I don't know if anyone's familiar with Discord, but it's originally a gaming platform where gamers would come together and have conversations. But the real benefit of it is it's a free server. It's a free server where you can have conversations and share materials and share resources. So I set up this Discord server where we have different threads where we can have discussions of the literature, discussions of methods, and then also have an opportunity to share resources like class syllabi, share calls that we might see for funding opportunities and things like that. So we have that set up. It hasn't really, we don't have a lot of activity yet. I think one of the things, it's difficult, you have to kind of, something new like that, right? People have to learn it and get engaged. So we'll see how that goes. It's just something that we were interested in experimenting with. Another benefit that we thought of it is that as we start in our, as we hopefully get into a routine of in-person conversation, that allows for kind of threaded conversations that people can have off of the full email listserv. So I think sometimes people are worried about emailing the full listserv. Having extended conversations over email can be extremely difficult because you have a listserv where perhaps not everyone is engaged in those conversations. So this kind of forum or something like it provides an opportunity for these kind of separate discussions where you can open up a forum and have things like that. So we haven't, those are the ideas we have. And I apologize to anyone interested in the North American group that neither Cassidy nor I have gotten things really rolling on those meetings. But I do think once we get into a routine, we have some ideas for where to go going forward. And we'd be very interested in learning from some of the more established groups as to what you all have been doing. So.
Great. Fantastic. Thanks, Emily, for that. And there's a sort of a bit of a history with CERN North America, because there was, when just after Julie died, she had a number of PhD students, and they got together and met regularly as a sort of way of supporting them in that period after Julie's death. And then they finished their PhDs and got jobs, so things went quiet. And then in 2022, Kath was at Harvard University, and so she used that as a chance to get CERN, have another go at CERN North America. She was there for 12 months and the group met pretty regularly then. And then it sort of kept going for a bit, but petered out. And then Emily and Cassidy are having another go. And I do remember, Emily, in one email, you said it's almost like the more difficult it is to find the time to do this, it's an indication that it's actually really important to be doing it. So that what you said at one point is sort of really stuck in my mind. So that brings us to Aotearoa, New Zealand. I've got a PowerPoint that I'll share, and I also will remember to time myself. So let me just get that and then share screen. I don't know. I think, usually I usually get the full screen view and then share screen after I do that. But I just feel like the PowerPoint does not like it. And now my computer is stuck on the here we go. Okay, share. Now, sorry, I'm going to be the person with the technical glitch. Okay, let's see what I'm sharing. Now, can you see that? Great. And that is different to what I can see on my screen. So now, how am I going to make that big? Someone there is going to tell me. Or maybe that's enough because my little mouse thing is going round and round, telling me it's struggling. Is everyone okay with that?
Yes.
Is this a PowerPoint?
It is.
Maybe if you click on the slideshow, we'll be able to see the big, because now we see the presenter view.
You do. And I've got the big, on my other screen, I've got the big view.
Oh yeah, that's because you have to put like extend display or duplicate display, but this is fine. I mean, I can see it. I mean,
if you can see it, that's, yeah.
If people have very small screens, they probably can't, but I can if I go close.
Okay. Well, look, we're going to go with what's there. Thank you, everyone. CERN Aotearoa, there's been like a lot of the groups, there's been a number of iterations, and one iteration was based around Kelly Dombrowski when she was at Canterbury University in Christchurch, and she had a big group of PhD students, and so she met with her PhD students to do a sort of reading group, and then occasionally other people would join them. Then after the first summer winter school in 2022, and also because I had retired and moved to New Zealand, we used that as a chance to sort of reinvigorate CERN Aotearoa. And building on what we do in the summer winter school, we've used a G drive, and I have to say, I think that that sort of infrastructure of using the G drive has been just a way of making ourselves visible to ourselves. It makes us more of a thing perhaps than what we are. And you can see there in the G drive, that's what we put each year in, and then if we just take this year, I'll just show you what we've been doing this year. And we're essentially a reading group. And I'm pressing the arrow to go that way, and my little thing's going round and round. So I know it will move. In the meantime, I'll just keep talking. So what we do is we usually start with a go round, and because because New Zealand's relatively small, a lot of people know each other quite well, and so it's actually a great chance for people to catch up with each other. So we do that, which is a bit like the weather go round, Matt. So I am interested to know a bit more about how you do the introductions. But it is a chance just for people to keep that connection with each other going. So we do a go round, and then we focus on a piece of work. And what we try to do is to read work that has been written by people in CERN in the Aotearoa context. So when this slide eventually moves on to there's a 2025 schedule. And if I go to the what we do is we have our schedule, and then we've got we're using PowerPoint. We did use Jamboard, where people can put notes in prior to the meeting, and we put, like the last meeting we read that was our reading, and then we put things into the done folder. But this has been our schedule for this year. And in terms of schedules, we just stick to a regular time, and it's the last Friday of the month, 1 to 3 p.m. And if people can make it, they can make it. And if they can't, they can't. And if they've got teaching this semester, maybe they won't have teaching next semester at that time. But, just in terms of establishing a routine, and it makes it super easy to schedule. And it just, in a way, gets that routine and that habit into people's mind. So what we did this year, we read Matt Scobie, who's a CERN member, he's a Maori member. He's written on the economic politics of decolonisation. So we read that book. A public holiday, we cancelled May. I can't remember why, but probably because lots of people couldn't make it. Then we wanted to read some chapters from theses that people had finished. So we read just the introduction and one other chapter from George's thesis. And then we liked that so much, we came back to reading more of her thesis later in the year. And we also read another member, Jack Barrett, his PhD thesis. And that actually was the seed of the idea for some of the sessions that we're running in Liviana, where people who've done the summer winter school are presenting their theses, and then there are respondents in terms of the series editors from the Diverse Economies and Livable Worlds book series. So it's just great to go and read those sort of younger scholars' work and affirm what it is that they're doing. And the other thing that we're keen to do, and people have done it, is to read people's draft work. And so Kelly Dombrowski and Stephen Healy had a draft chapter that we read. And we actually did that meeting jointly with CERN Sydney, because Stephen's quite active in CERN Sydney. So that was a joint meeting where we all read the same draft chapter. And for our last meeting at the end of November, we're going to give gifts to each other in the form of sharing something that we've read across the course of the year that we've found we really got something out of. And then in terms of the technology, we use PowerPoint slides, and just it's a chance where people can just put notes down about what they've got out of the reading. So we call it standouts. So just things that stand out of the reading. And so that, for instance, is what Kelly wrote for the reading we've just looked at, which is Jack's thesis. And we always say to people, look, if you can only read the first page of something, that's fine. You know, if you can read the whole thing, that's great. And even if you've just read the first page, even just putting up a few notes about what has been stimulated for you from reading even a short piece. And it just means when we come to the group, there's a sort of, it sort of is, it's a leveling. So you've got, Kelly's, from her professorial perspective, her notes. The next slide might be somebody who's just done their PhD confirmation notes. But it just means we go around the slides and people get to talk about it, and then it raises issues and so on that we spend a bit more time talking about. But it's just a way of everybody having, in a sense, equal input. And we're not relying on one person to sort of lead in a way. So I think we've found that technology really useful. And the other thing is that, like CERN Europe, we also do a writing group. We do this once a month, and we do it jointly with CERN Sydney. This came about out of, we started this at the end of last year, and we do it a 3-hour block. We use the Pomodoro method, write 25 minutes, 5-minute break. And they're 3 hours, and sometimes they go for 4 hours if people want to keep writing, which sometimes people do. And again, we start with people saying, this is what I would like, this is what I'm working on. And then at the end, we do a little show and tell, and people just, show visibly what they've been working on. And again, it's interesting, Matt, you said about the diversity of people. What I love about the writing group is we have Bronwyn Morgan, who's a professor of law, who comes every writing session. And then we have a young PhD student who's just working on his confirmation paper, and he comes every session. But in the discussion about what people are working on, there's, everybody takes each other's writing and work really seriously and respectfully. And I sort of love that whole diversity of people sitting and writing together, but also sharing what it is that they've been working on. So I will now attempt to get out of that, and I'll stop sharing. Great. Sorry about that technological glitch. So that's the place-based ones. Then we've got a Viv who helps coordinate with Molly and Heather the CERN ABC/DE. So Aviv.
So hello. So the ABC/DE group it's been a group of us who've coordinated it, and some people have been involved more or less at different periods. So it's been Molly, Heather, also Leo, Huang, Anna Ines was also and is also quite involved in running it, and myself. And it's been going on, who knows, a bunch of years. We've been organizing something for maybe I'll talk a little bit more about why it exists. It's there's two kind of connected reasons that that made this group emerge, and they have to do with a lot of maybe why some of us are even in CERN and in the CEI, and it has to do with, on one hand, a certain openness in, or even a call, I would say, in community economies and diverse economies writing and framework, like a call for creativity, for a kind of like experimentation that goes beyond traditional academic experimentation. I'll put a quote in the that I usually think about this quote from post-capitalist politics when I think about this. I'll put it in the chat because I don't have a PowerPoint. I thought Molly was going to be here and do this with me, but I don't know what happened. She's not here. So on one hand, there's this call for kind of really for our kind of artistic thinking, arts thinking, to engage with economies and alternative forms of relating. And on the other hand, and I think relatedly, there's a bunch of us in CERN that are either art practitioners or other sort of creative practitioners, or people who are academics but also have engage in artistic experimentation, either as part of their academic work or as a hobby. And we thought that given that there's this call in the literature, we don't feel like they're like a really, I think it's underdeveloped, the response to this call in terms of from the lived experience of artists and creative practitioners. And there's a lot of well, I mean, I'm not going to go into the details of this of the kind of things that we think different. I think different people probably have different perspectives on it in the group. So there's a listserv that's largely inactive, basically because you know, I don't know if you know about the gig economy of art and precarity, and so basically we're all kind of putting out fires and have a very low capacity to actually organize. But I don't think it comes from a lack of enthusiasm for it. I think there's actually is a kind of a thirst for it. And what we have been doing is every year for Liviana, we kind of awaken and we get involved. And in order to articulate these things, there were a lot of different things that were thought up. In the process, we wanted to write a book. We wanted to create an exhibition together. We applied for a big, we wrote a funding bid together that wasn't successful. But mostly what's been happening is that we've had Liviana sessions that have been very experimental in terms of people kind of engaging together, kind of writing a poem together, expressing these kinds of ideas, making a little thing and then sharing it and kind of interacting with each other to kind of embody how a kind of like a knowledge can be created together, just in a session like that. And what we're doing now, just to finish, is that we're because we want to kind of make this thinking explicit. What we've decided to do is we're starting a series of interviews where each person who feels like it takes a person who thinks that they can have a contribution to this kind of thinking, a creative practitioner or someone who's in any way engaged in this kind of way of developing knowledge, and they have a one-on-one interview with them. And these are going to be Zoom interviews, and we're holding 2 of them during Liviana. I'll plug them now. One is Heather McLean is talking to June, I can't remember the last name, and the other one is I'm going to interview my partner and collaborator Anna Coromina. And then what we're going to do is we're going to let Zoom transcribe it, then we're going to edit it, and then we're going to publish these as a series on the Community Economies website. And the idea is to invite people from the listserv and beyond to to hold these interviews, transcribes them, contributes to these series according to what they think, and then hopefully kind of a body of knowledge will accumulate that articulates this kind of thinking from diverse perspectives. And then, I don't know, maybe we can look into it and see how we can kind of join it all together and think about what it means if this is successful and people really do actually do these interviews. But that's what we're doing, I think, and are kind of excited about now, and that's kind of the way we're activating it now. And I think it's finally going to kind of become a kind of active thing, and hopefully engaging people on the listserv around conversations about these things as well. Did I talk too much?
Perfect. That was spot on 6 minutes. Thank you, Aviv. And yeah, that's the challenges of having a group that is spread around the world, and how you find time to get together. And so it's great that in a way using Liviana as that jump start in the year I think has been a great strategy for the group. So Christian, you've sort of got you've been involved in CERN North America, but you've also been working on a sort of communities of practice thinking. So maybe some input from you would be fantastic.
Yeah, thanks. I can just share what we've been working on. So communities of practice is maybe a little bit different than the other groups in the sense that it is a working group within the Community Economies Institute, and it has a history. So I think in the past, it was the group that was responsible for first organizing Liviana. It was a group that at least had some coordination with all of the different regional groups that you all are a part of. But I've only been part of this working group for since last year at this time. And previous to that, Ana Inez Jerez was a big part of it. And so it's the two of us now. And since I've come in, we've kind of shifted from, I think the previous mode was organizing things within CERN, to stepping back and thinking more a little bit about how different people within CERN are actually engaging in different kinds of practices in relation to community. So a little bit more of a meta kind of way of thinking. And we're kind of thinking about this on a couple of different levels. So the first would be what we think of as inner space. So how are people within CERN relating to each other, within all the regionals and all the groups that you all are describing? How is that working? So sort of thinking about those relationships within CERN and people already within the network. And then the second thing we're thinking of is outer space, because we realize that a lot of people in the network are actually working with other people who are not part of the network. So other communities in the places where they are, or different kinds of activists or different artists or whatever, right? So we're kind of thinking there's a lot that we can learn by actually thinking about the practices that people are engaging in, both within the network and in these broader relationships, to then help us understand sort of a number of different questions. So we've started thinking about this, we're thinking about how do people negotiate power imbalances in relationships? How do you establish relationships? How do you negotiate change and flux? How do you deal with different infrastructural things, or just the different demands on people's time? How do you think about something like co-elaboration, where if you're a researcher who's interested in not just extracting, right? Because a lot of us in CERN are very mindful not to be extractivist in our relationships with communities. How do you actually build those relationships and have meaningful relations that are collaborative and reciprocal and just? So, we've kind of started thinking about that and interviewing different people, and we're thinking about it as sort of two things. It's an inventory of what people are already doing, so in line with Community Economies thinking around an inventory. But then even as you all were talking about the really different contexts you all are facing, we're thinking there's different ways that you can sort of have a read on or an analysis of actually like structure and different conditions people are facing and different challenges that are different in different places, right? Very different in one region versus the other. Even in these groups, like I suspect some of the challenges in North America might be related to our political climate and our failing institutions, right? Like we're in a moment where people have very little bandwidth for anything other than trying to like maintain the structures of the institutions they're within and like protect the people they love and figure out what's happening. And so that has been a tough time to ask people to get together and like read stuff that isn't essential to that task. So it's a long way of saying we're in this process. We're thinking about it as both an inventory, but also a kind of larger way of actually thinking about structure and then thinking about opportunity, thinking about potential openings for resilience, resistance, reworking, different community economies to take shape within those spaces. And at this point, we're talking to folks. We'd love to hear from you if you have ideas or thoughts or input. And we're also thinking about what would be useful to people in terms of outcomes and things that would be reasonable and useful for toolkits or different forms of sharing the knowledge and the inventory. So that's where we're at, and I think it aligns a lot with things that everybody else has said. It's just like a little bit of a higher level kind of initiative. Everybody's
Fantastic.
doing really exciting stuff, though. It's fascinating to learn about.
Yeah, no, and that's great, Christian. It's great to have that sort of thinking going on alongside the really practical doing of the CERN groups. So I'm looking at the time, and maybe let's stand and have a stretch for 2 minutes, and we can turn our screens off and stretch and move around for 2 minutes. And then let's come back and take any sort of burning questions that people have got. And then or either burning questions that people have got or burning things that people want to talk about. And I've got some thoughts for some areas that we might discuss, but I think let's just first do burning questions or burning issues. So how about we take 2 minutes from now and we'll come back and think about that. I actually thought, Anna and Bianca, whether you had any burning questions or issues that you wanted to mention.
I didn't have any burning issues. I had a question about the North American CERN, whether there was, how many people were sort of on the listserv and on the Discord, just to have a feel for where approximately, like, are we talking 10 people or like hundreds?
That is a great question. I just had the listserv open. So I will say the number on the listserv is much, much, much higher. We have, it looks like, I don't know, maybe 50 people on the listserv, but I don't think that represents the number of people who are actually active. I want to say, I'm trying to remember how many we had at our meeting in July. I think it was around 15 people. It was a fairly good size meeting, and so I think there's a lot of enthusiasm there. The Discord is, as of right now, very, very small. It's basically, I think there's only like 5 of us on the Discord. So the Discord's still very small, but we haven't really gotten that up and running yet. And I think I'm hoping that once we get in if people are, perhaps it's not of interest to people, which is also fine, but if it is of interest, I'm thinking that perhaps as we get into an in-person routine, that will then give avenues to spark off into those kind of asynchronous conversations as well, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the more people we get on it and the more people who use it, then, the more opportunities there are and things like that.
Yeah, great.
Sorry. My small issue was that I wasn't able to join because of the date. Like I always gave a class on Wednesdays, and still now. So maybe there would be an idea of having like an asynchronic meeting, or otherwise I just have to sit it out and join next semesters, like others said.
Yeah.
But of course, it's also nice on the other hand to have this routine schedule, which of course I get as well.
I think the point, isn't it, Matt, that we're trying to make it regular, but it's not that we're beholden to Wednesday mornings or something. So, I mean, it's something to discuss, right? I mean, because it's a new year and why not, you know? And also maybe different time of day, I don't know. But that's something we could send out because we have a really big listserv and it's not that everybody's attending. So I don't know, Matt, what you think?
Yeah, I think we can be flexible. I mean, probably, 8:30, not 8:30. The same time every Wednesday is probably for people who are teaching. It's probably like one of the worst times actually of the whole week if you think about it. But yeah, I think we could work on that. There's no set in stone thing. I think it was just the regularity. We were trying to get something regular, which is kind of easier to administer, but also people have turned up. So yeah, but maybe it's changing the days, maybe it's alternating 2 days, or maybe it's. I think we went with the idea of it being like the first Wednesday of a month or something like that. But yeah, always ways to think about that, especially going into 2026 for sure.
And it's not like there's a right way of doing it. It's like each group has to sort of experiment and figure out what works for the members, but also what works for the coordination of it. And I think, I mean, things have been synchronous, but Viv's experience and then what Emily's looking at, does raise the issue of thinking about how these things might work asynchronously as well. So thanks for that, Bianca and Anna. From the people who've talked, are there any burning things that have come to mind for you? Yeah, Matt.
Yeah, Christian, I'm really interested in this inner space, outer space stuff. And I mean, my world is organization studies, and I'm just very interested in collaboration and how we form groups. And what I've noticed from this is just something to say, but what I've noticed about the work that I've been doing is that I generally don't meet with people engaged with CERN. I meet with other people who are very CERN adjacent. They're kind of allies. And what I do all the time is just to try to use as much as possible, use the language of community economies, or mention, J.K. Gibson Graham, and bring that into the conversation. So, but I think this idea of how you make these connections outside is also interesting because of the diversity of the group itself. So the touch points within the group itself are also quite challenging sometimes because we don't share, not from the same disciplinary area, not all geographers. Like my PhD was in management. I mean, it's kind of we're all from all different places. So I think that idea of how you connect together is really interesting. So thank you for bringing that, and thanks for doing the work on it.
Thanks for that comment. And we might reach out to talk to you because what you're saying makes a ton of sense. Yeah, it's kind of our thinking too. Like, there's so many people in this network who are doing interesting things along this line with, I like that term, CERN adjacent groups out there. And so, a way of thinking about continuing to expand the thinking and, whatever people need to do in the spaces where they are, whether it's connecting around specific issues or doing organizing or, continuing to think about community economic development, super useful. So we might just reach out to you to talk more. Thanks.
Great. So we've got Emily's got a hand up and then Wendy. So Emily.
Sorry, I put my hand down instead of unmuting. I have two very practical questions. One is, we thought about the use of Google Drives as instead of Discord as well, but I think one challenge I've had is I've had so many projects now with people trying to share things on Google Drive that colleagues are running out of space and so they can't join without paying money. And I'm wondering if you've come across that at all. And then my other question is for those of you who are doing the writing sessions, I think it's interesting how that works in terms of kind of the introduction, because in my experience, sometimes in these meetings, the introductions take up nearly all the time. So I can see where I'm just wondering how you manage that in terms of where everybody gives their like statement of what they're working on today, how you keep that focus so that everyone has time to, devote to actually writing.
Okay, great. So the G drive question, that's not for CERN New Zealand, that's not an issue that we've come across. We've come across that within the CEI, within the board, we use Dropbox, and that's been an issue at the board level. And so what we have is a main CEI drive and then an archive. And we try to put anything historic we put into the archive, but anything that's got, lots of big images, anything that's going to take up space, we put into the archive. And about half of us access the archive and about half don't access the archive. But it's not been an issue for us with the G drive. And I think possibly because a lot of the universities in this part of the world use OneDrive, and the sort of institutions just, automatically direct them into that area. So no, that's not been an issue. Now, whether anyone else has got an observation about that. Okay, and then the second one, Emily, was about, you're going to have to remind me, prompt me.
Yeah, so for the writing groups,
the writing,
how it's been with those kind of introductions of making sure people keep them short and the times devoted to writing.
Yeah. So Matt, do you want to talk about that for your group, and I can say something for the one here?
Yeah, I mean so with the write-in group, we don't really introduce ourselves, to be honest. It's just like we've landed in this space and we're going to try and work, and we do the Pomodoro thing, and that's it. But Wendy, do you just want to mention something about our introductions with the main group? Because I think we were just trying to be a bit more precise, weren't we?
Yeah, we well, like Jenny, I think you have to sort of limit it. So we basically have one question that we ask people to comment on, and that's it, and move on. So but we do them. I think they're really important. And we even try to do a sort of, sort of at the end, sort of another round if possible. So, but it's about, it's a little bit about the facilitation, having one question that you say, okay, like Jenny did, where are you, what time, etc. And people answer that. And it's a way of breaking the ice of getting everyone to have spoken, and then you move on. Yeah.
I'm going to say two things. I'm just going to add to what Wendy said about within the reading group, partly because there's so many personal connections. We do that sort of more sort of social go round, and we just ask people to give us an update on what's happening for them. So it might be that somebody has got, their PhD, they did their PhD confirmation seminar and they got through and they're really happy, and now they're moving on to writing their ethics. Or it might be that somebody's had a paper they've been working on, they finally got it submitted, and it's now in the publication, mill of activity. So we try to keep them, and sometimes it's only like, and I mean, our numbers are not great. We might have 4 to 8 people at a meeting. And my approach is always to say it's not the number of people in the room. It's whoever is there are the right people to be there. And in fact, some of the richest discussions we've had have been when there's only 4 of us there. And we, can really have some great discussions, and that sort of time for both listening and responding. So we do that initial go round, which is sort of an update on what people have been doing. Then whatever the piece is that we're reading, we do another go round and we just ask people for a general reaction. So we don't get into the detail too quickly. So it's sort of another light go round, and then we go to the slides, and then that's when people talk in more depth. And we tend to have a slide and then a bit of discussion, move on to the next slide, discussion, and so on. In terms of the writing group, I think a bit like what Matt said, people are there to do something and they're there to write. So the go round at the beginning is just, look, I know I should be working on this article, but I've got to write a job reference for someone. That's what I'm working on. So it's just, 10 words about what the task is that you're going to work on, just so we sort of have a sense of what people are writing. And sometimes it is an academic paper. Sometimes I just use it as a chance to do email, and email's writing. And then as we use the Pomodoro, as Matt said, with the 25 minutes, 5-minute break, 25 minutes, 5-minute break. And then when we get to the 3 hours, often people are keen to keep going. And we do it, the reading group is on the last Friday of the month. The writing group is on the first Friday of the month. So the two follow again, and that sort of habit routine, I think, is important, although recognizing, as Bianca says, that sometimes it means that people can't do it for 6 months or potentially 12 months, except, during the break period. But we've I think the feeling is the habit weighs out over the trying to be accommodating and changing it around.
Can I just add one thing about the go round? I mean, that I don't want it to sound like we're just like, meh, who are you? Where are you? Get on with it. It's not. It's not like I mean that with the regular one, there is sometimes a bit of, oh, how's that sprained ankle, or how's the kid, or there is some of that still. So there is still that warmth in the which I think is needed often, isn't it? In these digital environments, you do need that. So, but I know exactly what you mean about the lengthy, then those can get too big. And so there's a bit of kind of management of that, I think quite aware of. Yeah.
Yeah. Wendy.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say also to Christian that it would be so useful to have some of what you're doing written down and sort of framing a bit what we're doing. I know you're sort of doing it's sort of in dialogue with what we're doing, but I also found it really interesting and useful. And of course, in a way, as someone who's worked for years in all these different kinds of groups, it's great to hear as you put it, macro picture. And I think it's a real contribution to many other spaces. I just wanted to flag that. And I also wanted to say everything that we're doing here, I hope, Jenny, there is some way that we're keeping the tips and or whatever it is, like how it works for others and swapping information. I think it's super useful, particularly I think so in Europe as we're sort of thinking, well, what are we going to do in 2026 and how could we do it better, or not even better, just how can we do it. So I think that it would be really nice to have that somehow written in some form, not just because to be honest, I probably wouldn't listen to a recording, but I would love to get something from this and probably from the other groups as well. I just wanted to say that because this is really useful and it is part of a community economies way of working, no? Sharing and positively encouraging others to sort of work with the ideas that we have. I think that's really good. And then the third thing I wanted to say was a bit how at some point working with other groups, like the degrowth groups, or like in my case, some of the decolonial feminist groups, I would be interested in having a more open conversation about where are the overlaps and the linkages and how could we build together, not just a small insular, well, not small, large insular CERN group. You know what I mean? I think the overlaps are really important to find. I know I know that's being done, but it would be interesting. I don't know if that's what Christian's also thinking of, how to do that in ways that are productive and help flourish in both directions. I just thought there are some allies, if you like, or people that are walking with us. And that would be really interesting to know how we could do that more intentionally.
So, Aviv, is that a response to Wendy, or is that something, or in relation to something that Wendy said, or something new?
It's in relation to what several people said.
Okay. So off you go.
Well, just something about this idea, what Christian was talking about, this idea of outer space, of kind of CERN adjacent people that we're engaging with, and I think there's something that I don't know exactly how to articulate it about organizations and practitioners that are really quite far away from academic. I mean, they are building knowledge, but I mean, it's even this idea of engaging with them exactly with this terminology would be too theoretical for them. You know, people who are just putting out fires, frontline organizations that are still maybe being creative and creating that maybe kind of academic work as usual would just use, like, see them as case studies and be extractive, but really, you know, it's an exchange of knowledge, and you know, should be as equitable as possible, as Christian said. And you know, in some of our cases, we're almost more part of them than part of academic spaces. So I think something about articulating these kinds of relationships and these kinds of conversations would be useful. It sounds like really on the outskirts of this, because it's kind of far away from academia. But I mean, it definitely has a lot to do with action research and the kind of thinking coming from action research and participatory action research, like practitioner research and practitioner knowledge that's been valued. I don't know where the question is or the comment is there, but
Okay.
just to mention.
So Wendy, in relation to the CE adjacent groups, I know, I'm just thinking in the past, I know Tom, when he was working on CERN Europe, did have somebody from the US who'd worked on a documentary film show the film, and then they had discussion. So they invited somebody in to do a presentation or show a film, and then they used that as the basis for discussion. But the other way to think about those CE adjacent groups is to use Liviana as an opportunity for joint sessions. So I'm just thinking that last year we used we had a session on community economies meets diverse democracies, the diverse, that's not quite their name, but they're a big group who work on diverse democracies around the people-powered group. And so we had, because Josh Lerner from People Powered had just done a paper about diverse democracies, in part drawing on the sort of, you know, economic diversity and quite inspired by some of the diverse economies work. And he'd done that in the space of thinking about diverse democracies. So we had a really interesting conversation. And there was intention at the time. We were looking at potentially running a sort of joint school on diverse economies and diverse democracies. But, you know, people's capacity, and somebody left People Powered, and we weren't able to advance that. But I mean, in some ways, I sort of feel like the CERN groups are a space for nurturing each other. And it's potentially things like Liviana, which are opportunities to then have, you know, just the sort of CE adjacent discussions. But then, you know, we've got, you know, there's no reason why CERN groups can't invite people in and, you know, have discussions about things. But I sort of feel like, yeah, there's spaces for nurturing each other in some ways. Emily's put the comment up about putting up for example, a transcript from what we're talking about here. Wendy, I hadn't thought about doing anything other than this is a space of just for us to touch base with each other. But you know, everyone's got each other's email addresses. There's no reason why people can't you know, stay in touch. And you know, why we couldn't do something like in May, you know, April, May next year, have a catch up, for example, if people felt that would be useful. One of the things that is a bit of a burning issue for me is actually the commitment from people who coordinate, because you know, I feel like the success largely hinges on the capacity of the people who put their hand up to coordinate, to keep the reminders going and to canvass people to get the agenda together, and that sort of the housekeeping type work. I feel like there's that work that is sort of essential to having the CERN groups going, and I know that CERN Latin America almost have taken quite a strategic approach to that, where they have some senior scholars who sort of mentor junior scholars in the role, and then they have a handover. So Julia is shortly stepping out of the role and handing it on to somebody else. So I think both the co-facilitation, like having a couple of people doing it, and the sort of succession planning, so that we make sure we don't get burnout from the people who've put their hand up to coordinate. So I just wonder if anyone's got any thoughts about that or comments about that. Yeah, Wendy.
Yeah, Matt and I are very conscious of the succession or whatever. So the idea of having rolling coordination, but at the same time having established a bit what works, so that you don't just get up and go. So that's where we're aiming for, because indeed to share things, but not just, but there's a memory left, or I don't know, or some sort of sense of where we're going. I think that's important. So Matt and I have been talking about that, and I've just kind of joined and sort of got led into what we're doing, right? So we're thinking every year to sort of do that. So there's one person in, one person out, something like that. But of course not just leaving without anybody coming in. But I think it's really important, and right, Matt, that was something you were very clear about when I joined. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel I'm really fortunate because I'm in a full-time job and I got space to do it. So that's good. But my contract ends, next October. So there's got to be some, we got to do succession planning for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think we really have to watch out for making sure that we don't get burnout of the people who are doing that work, because they're the sort of linchpins that are keeping the groups together and keeping them growing. So just that's something we can all reach out to each other about as well, thinking strategically about how we might do the succession and so on. And often it's no good to just put out a call. You actually have to tap people on the shoulder. So for instance, when Anne Charlotte couldn't do this anymore, we tapped Wendy on the shoulder and said, "Hey, Wendy, how about you think about this?" Which has been fantastic. Anna, I can see your hand up. I want partly, Wendy, in relation to what you said about the record. I've just put the link in the chat to the page on the CE website that's for the CERN groups, and each of the groups are listed there. And then if you go into your group, we're trying to just keep a record each year of what each group is doing. So, because we forget, and so towards the beginning of the year or the end of the year, I try to put an email out to the CERN coordinators to say, hey, just send me something that we can put up to just, note what you've been doing. So that is sort of a, a memory. And it seems to me that's a useful archive function that the website can play around the CERN groups. But Anna.
Sorry, I was looking at the CERN group's website. Does anyone have any idea as to what the time commitment is for coordinating, participating in the coordination of one of these groups? Like how many hours per week or month, or like for one of the examples that are going well, let's say one that's like mature and work and functioning well, what would it look like? I'm trying to evaluate. I want to get involved in something, but I don't know where, at what level.
So maybe Julia and Pablo, how long does it I mean, but you're very mature and doing lots of things. Like if you were to put in the time for the spring school, it would be a lot. But just in terms of the monthly meeting side of things.
Nunca lo
It's a
converso.
good question. No, it's a good question. No, nunca lo. The time that we spend and use to organize all the things that
Per week, so that I don't know, is speculative, but in retrospective, I think 6 hours to working in group. Una metodología, lo voy a desarrollar en castellano, en español, y después lo traduzco, pero es for develop my idea, I prefer to elaborate in Spanish, and then I am to translate. Con Julia lo que hacemos es, nos juntamos en vivo 2 horas por semana y en ese mismo momento elaboramos, pero a partir de ahí nos queda mucha tarea que está vinculada con conectarse con el resto de la red y demás, y seguir pensando. Así que es bastante difícil la pregunta, Emily, pero bueno, básicamente eso. Juli, no sé.
I think that one thing that is for us essential is that we have like a relationship that is very like close, so we can like work together, and we call us 1 hour and we send a few emails to the people of the CERN LA, and also to order, I don't know, us of what activities or what things, what practice we have to go. So it's like a collaborative way to work between us, and we are not like lonely, or I don't feel lonely doing what I'm doing here in the coordination. And also if we have like some doubt, I have someone we can call like Anna or some of the team that also can help us. But
There are other people at part of the CERN LA. I don't know, for example, David Burin, Ana Inés Heras, with Julia, Amalia. There are a lot of people that we work together in a physical place. And, well, this facilitates the work for the coordination of this regional, I don't know. But there are other people that is in different part of the world. And for me, it's a kind of desire to know, for example, Antonia Caselas, that work a lot with us.
In Spain, yes.
Apoyando la coordinación, o Juliana Flores, that is in Bogotá, en Colombia, que nunca la hemos conocido de la misma manera, and the same way that for me, the CERN for the moment is in a virtual digital mood. Un deseo para mí es poder conocer a Cristian, a Viv, a Jenny, no sé, conocer al resto de los participantes. Pero bueno, eso en algún momento pienso que se dará.
Yes, you mentioned that I think that we are like in the same struggle of how to make money to meet each other. That is like something that it's a desire, as Pablo says right now, that I would like to meet, because we are working with people like since, I don't know, 5 years ago, and we don't have like the time to be face to face. But well, our dynamic way of working.
Anna, I mean, I would say for me, it's probably only the actual organization work is probably only about 2 hours a month, but that's like the 2 hours of sitting and doing the reminder email, chasing up somebody to say, hey, Jack, you said we're going to read your thesis. You need to send me the thesis. I've got to upload it onto the G drive. I mean, maybe if I took in, maybe 2 to 3 hours a month. So it's not not a lot of time, but it's on your mind. And it's there's that invisible work of, when you're on the morning walk. Oh, I must remember to send that email to Jack to get him to send me the thesis. So when he sends it, I can put it up on the G drive. And then I need to get the slides ready for the month. And then I can send the email to everybody. So there's I'd say probably 2 to 3 hours a month of the sitting at the computer. But there's just the keeping it
mental
on your
load.
horizon. Yeah, the
It's the
keeping it on
mental
your
load.
horizon. Yeah. And I think from a facilitator, from that facilitator perspective, I think that's why having a regular time is really useful, because I know at the end of the month it's going to be there in my diary, and that's the reminder for the week before. Oh, I got to start working on it. Whereas if the weeks were to keep moving around, I think I would, it's too easy to lose track of it. So I think, people lead really busy lives, and so the more easier we can make things, so we can do that keeping the routine and the habit going, I think is key. So I mean, whether Emily, you want to say something, or Wendy and Matt, how you found it work-wise, time-wise?
I don't know that I can give a great example since since we don't have a routine yet. So I think that for me is the challenge, is not having the routine yet, because I think while that routine is being established, like I will say, setting up the Discord server was quite a bit of time, getting those things, thinking about what time are we going to do it? Thinking about those are the kind, and I think that's been part of the reason of the delay, is it's just been the overwhelm associated with that. And I think once things get going, and once we can kind of get into that routine, then I anticipate it won't be as much time. But I think I haven't had the time, nor has Cassidy, to really, especially because I think part of the challenge was we were all also, and Drew is also interested in helping, and we were all helping coordinate Liviana sessions as well. So trying to prepare for Liviana at the same time as we were trying to kind of establish this routine, I think that kind of just fell by the wayside. But I think we're all hoping to get that moving in the next month or so, now that Liviana has happened and is energizing all of us.
Yeah. So yeah, that's great to hear. Wendy and Matt. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I because of the weekly writing group, if I need to do anything, I might do it in that. I'll just have a kind of regular slot of do some CERN admin stuff once a week for an hour. It doesn't take that, because it's a bit of a cycle. So I'll send out a reminder for next week, this Friday, and sometimes I don't do anything at all with it. So I think it's probably, like Jenny, it's like three hours a month, but then there's obviously the thing itself, and so yeah.
Wendy, did you want to add anything?
Well, I'm sort of feel like Matt had a well-oiled machine going, so I sort of joined in. But I am conscious that as we move towards 2026, we might need a little bit more time to kind of get that going. So, but I hear what you're saying, Jenny. It's really a nice thing to do, and but it is on your mind. But I'm sort of following in the footsteps of Matt at the moment. So I feel like my time is coming, but not yet.
I see. Thanks, Wendy. I see Viv has got his hand up. This session is scheduled for an hour and a half. So if anybody needs to leave, please do. But also, I think some people are happy to stay and keep chatting for a little bit, so we can do that. So Wendy, you're going to shoot off from our screens. Yep. Great to see you. Yeah, and Christian, thanks, Christian. Great to hear more about what you're up to. Thank you. Okay, Viv.
Yeah, I just looked at the clock and realized I also need to leave. But just to say that in our group, for better or for worse, the conversation is, what can we do with no time?
Yeah.
What can we do with like zero resources? And this proposal of doing these interviews, letting letting Zoom transcribe them, then giving them a quick edit and publishing them is a kind of like a minimum. But I think it is because despite the lack of resources, despite the lack of time, like I think there's, we feel it's, like we're excited about actually somehow having the conversation despite that. So yeah, so there's that as well. Just on the low.
Yeah, and the intention is that we'll publish them within the CERN ABCDE section of the website.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that as well, because there's two conversations happening during Liviana, but then, there's at least one already scheduled, or at least that's going to happen definitely outside. And, there's a question, should that be a public one, that people could join as if a kind of like an off Liviana session, so there's possibilities for having engagement throughout the year, just in this very easy, no low time investment way.
Yeah. Okay, so we can chat about that. Yeah. All right. So anything for anyone else?
Can I just ask, the Latin American CERN includes Mexico? No? Or is that in North American?
It was for us the question.
Estaba manejando la computadora y dice, está en Norteamérica.
Mexico is with North America?
No, sí, Pauli, no.
No. I mean, it is in NAFTA, but which no longer exists. But I'm wondering about our organization might be different.
Nosotros estamos ahí mezclados. Sé que de Canadá está Marcelo participando en Norteamérica y también en Latinoamérica.
I don't understand Spanish, so just so you know, maybe somebody could maybe do a little quick translation after.
Yeah.
Okay.
For example, there are a Professor Marcelo Vieta that is in Canada, that is in North America and Latin American too. But now, I don't know, Julia, if you know some.
No, right now there is no people that participating in CERN Latin America that are like
in Mexico.
Yeah. So Anna, I mean, basically anybody can join any CERN group. There's no borders or anything, and it's more. It's more because the CERN Latin America is in Spanish and Portuguese, and so and so Christian, for instance, has participated, and people from Aviv has participated in CERN Latin America. So if people share the language, so somebody could be in Mexico and be in CERN North America and CERN Latin America. It's just,
Yeah.
And what tends.
So I was just going to add from the North American perspective, we've just kind of framed it as anyone is welcome who has an interest in North America and the adjacent regions. So for example, my fieldwork is in the Bahamas, which is technically neither in North America nor Latin America. So, it's America, the Americas, North America adjacent. And I, of course, live in North America. So, I mean, certainly anyone is welcome at the CERN North America meetings.
Yes. We participate with Julia in the summer winter school, Anna. We participate with a colleague from Mexico, but I don't know if he integrated to the Community Economy Research Network. Well, as Jenny says, I don't know if it's important where part of the world the people are, but it depends the interest. I don't know.
And I mean, what's probably just worth noting is how people end up on the regional listservs. So there's new members, and because the new membership comes through the info email for Community Economies, which I manage, and so I put people onto the CERN list. But also, if it's pretty obvious that there's a geographical fit, then I will put them immediately onto the regional list as well, rather than ask them if they want to be on it. Sometimes I just, put them on it. And then every so often, but we haven't, well, every so often we try to just remind CERN in general that there are the regional groups. And if anybody, they're not on a list and they want to be added, or sometimes Emily took the initiative to send an email to all of CERN saying if anybody wants to be added to get in contact with Emily. So it's, it's self-selecting and nobody's going to be refused to be on a CERN group because of where they live or.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So anything else? All right. Well, we do have a practice in CERN NZ of doing a final go round, and we just say one or two words about how we're feeling as we leave the Zoom. So I'm going to work around my screen. So Emily, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling hopeful.
Great, great. Pablo.
In Spanish, con ganas de conocerlos personalmente.
And translated?
With the desire to know to each other personally.
Lovely. Yeah, yeah. Anna.
Motivated and curious.
Great. Bianca.
Inspired and excited.
Great. Julia.
I am happy to be here and to listen to other experiences that are so different and also so close of what we are doing. And also I am like very tired in my life in general. So to be here is like a lot, and I am happy that the two sessions of Liviana of today, they were great. So thank you.
Lovely, lovely. Matt.
Yeah, always inspiring.
Great. And I feel like I'm marveling. I'm just marveling at technology and that we can be scattered around the globe and yet, have this time together and feel so close and feel so connected to people. So I just, feel very connected to you all and very thankful for the work that you're doing and the commitment. So, thank you. All right. And we will all be in touch one way or another.
Thank you for organizing this, Jenny. This was
Yeah,
wonderful.
thank you, Jenny.
Yeah, no, it's great. Well, let's stay in touch and we can meet again April, May next year and see how everyone's going. Yeah, great. All right, we'll organize that. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bianca,